Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, let's pull up this screen. All right, the Stars definitely showed up Saturday night, and they were the four guys we were counting on big time. And there were a lot of other folks that showed up as well, obviously, but these four guys were leaders of the pack, so to speak, and that's what's got to happen this year. You know, you need your stars to shine, and they really did on Saturday. And you start out on defense with Byron Young, and we're going to get to the other guys, don't worry. But he won SEC Player of the Week, as you can see right here by the SEC. So that's really strong. It's the first time that he's ever won that honor in his 2 seasons on Rocky Top. Says he was a key piece of Tennessee's pass rush that pressured Pitt's duo of quarterbacks, Slovis and Patty, 16 times, the most by a Tennessee defense in a single game in 10 seasons. Almost can't emphasize enough how important that is. You know, one of the things that I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks is how important it is to pressure the quarterback. We didn't really see that at Ball State. Granted, Ball State was chopping our legs, and the quarterback was immediately throwing the ball, and they did everything they could to keep pressure off of them. And I think we were playing back and being very defensive because they weren't worried about Ball State. They just didn't want anybody injured, I think. But 16 pressures, and if you saw that game, it didn't matter who was quarterback in there. They were all over him. I mean, they were hitting him every time he threw the ball, it seemed like. And that's hard to do in this day and age. You've got to really be on him because if you hit even a bit late, they're going to hit you with a flag. He had one of the 4 sacks. He had 4 tackles, 3 quarterback hurries, and 2 tackles for loss. Those TFLs are huge. That really puts an offense behind the chains and makes everything more difficult. And those were all career game highs for him, so pretty strong. Then you had Tyler Barron. And Tyler had one of the biggest plays of the entire game. I thought it was huge. It kind of switched the momentum. They were trying to score at the end of the first half, and then they got the ball back in the second half. So I'm going, okay, they score here, and then they score again. They're well ahead. But instead, Barron had a little different idea for him. Said he's the guy that tackled Slovis for a strip sack. Okay, a strip sack. That's so much. Look, a sack's awesome, but a strip sack is the ultimate. And that's when Chase McGrath hit that field goal, and McGrath had a great game, and really he was one of the heroes of the game and wound up giving us a 7-point lead. So think of the momentum swing of that. Let's say Slovis had driven them down there and at least gotten a field goal or scored a touchdown. You know, they're sitting there either in the lead or maybe 1 point back. Instead, now we're a full touchdown ahead after what I thought was going to be a 17-0 lead for Pittsburgh. So you talking about momentum switch. Woo, unbelievable. So Tyler Barron had just a great game, I thought, and put a lot of pressure. And we'll look at the defensive numbers. And you can see who had good games here. Trayvon Flowers, of course, had a really good game. And let me tell you something about Aaron Beasley. Look, I'm going to have to admit it. I didn't think he was big enough to play SEC ball. Man, he's made a believer out of me. I thought he was undersized and kind of getting pushed around last year. He has really played great. I mean, he is all over the field. I mean, 14 tackles. He's just one of those guys. He's an overachiever. That's what he is. He just is playing out of his mind. And 14 tackles in one game is just, it's outstanding. It really is. Hayden had a really nice game, and Roman Harrison also had a tackle for a loss as well and played a nice game. And then you see Byron Young and also Tyler Barron and all that. So, you know, we had some guys that really played well on defense, but we have those stars that really have to shine for us to win, and they definitely showed up Saturday night. And that's something that, you know, we didn't see as much last year. We had some of it, but we usually didn't win these close games. We usually lost. So I'm starting to see a switch for us, which is great, especially on the road. I can tell you a lot of teams that are playing us need to be worried.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
That's right. Danger, Will Robinson, because we are dangerous. We will score. We will get after that quarterback. And I just could not have been more pleased with the defensive performance Saturday night. And then you take a look at Cedric Tillman and the games that he's had and the game that he had against Pittsburgh, which was unreal. We know last year he had just a tremendous year with 64 passes for 1,080 yards and 12 touchdowns last season, which was huge. He's already got 15 receptions in 2 games for over 230 yards. 1 touchdown, really had 2. It wound up on the 1-inch line. And a sports writer actually showed the numbers, what he's done in the big games. 9 receptions Saturday night for 162 yards and 1 touchdown, which is a huge game. Look what he did against Georgia last year. 10 receptions, 200 yards, and a touchdown. That's probably the best game any receiver had against Georgia all of last year. I'm sure it was. Kentucky had the 6 receptions, 79 yards, and a touchdown. Bama, 7 receptions, 152 yards, and 1 TD. Let me tell you something. When you put up numbers like that against Georgia and Alabama, which are probably the number 1 and number 2 defenses in the country last year, I don't think there's much question about that. And he had just a rock star game against both of them. He might be the best wide receiver in the country. He might very well be. It's kind of hard to argue against it. He's certainly in the conversation. And I sort of saved the best for last, although, man, I'm telling you, all 3 of those guys are playing well. But Hendon Hooker, I mean, what he did at the end of the game, absolutely fantastic. I could not be more pleased with how he ended that game, especially having that touchdown called back. As I said yesterday, the psychological effect of that, to be able to come back and shake that off and then throw a touchdown strike to Tillman was really impressive. And, he threw for 325 yards. He was 27 of 42, and he really came back after a tough first quarter. That first quarter is probably the worst quarter he's played since I've been watching him. I mean, it was really rough. He was overthrowing the ball. Guys were dropping balls he was throwing that were actually pretty good. And it just could not have gone worse. There was no rhythm at all. It was awful. And he just came back in the second quarter and just shook it off. And then, like I said, he ended the game the way that he did. So the Stars really came out Saturday night and helped us a bunch. And that's what's got to happen. Look, if you're going to win on the road against the ACC champion of last year, you're going to have your stars show up. And they're doing that. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future with Josh Heupel's recruiting and the way he coaches these guys up. I mean, let's think about it. What was Cedric Tillman until Josh Heupel showed up? All of a sudden, he's a world beater. What about Velus Jones? He's in the NFL now. He was an afterthought before Josh Heupel showed up. He brings out the best in these guys. They're obviously talented. Sometimes you just got to have the right coach to recognize it and bring it out of you. That's called coaching your players up, and that's what Josh Heupel's been doing. And I couldn't be more pleased. Now, in a couple of weeks, look, I'm not worried about Akron. That's just going to be a scrimmage. It'll be like Ball State, and we just don't want our guys to get hurt. So, play them in the first half and then get all your second and third string guys in there and get them plenty of playing time, and let's just get out of that game and be done with it and just turn it into an important scrimmage. But the Florida game is the big game, and it's the one that matters. And I'm telling you, Knoxville's going to be on fire that day. I'm hoping it's at night, but it's probably going to be at 3:30 because that's usually when the biggest games are, and it'll probably be on CBS or something like that. But I can tell you, when they show up, it's going to be like this for the Vols.
You tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Absolutely. We're going to bring it. I have absolutely no doubt of that, and I think we're going to whoop up on them. I really feel good about the Florida game, better than I ever have. Part of it's because Richardson struggled against Kentucky and had really a bad game, and it looked to me like Kentucky figured him out. They kept him from running the ball, and they made him beat him with his arm, and I don't think he's comfortable doing that. I think he wants to be dynamic, and he wants to run the ball first and then throw on the run and do all these different things. And Kentucky, look, Stoops is a really good defensive coach, and he has the mindset of how to stop people. And he realized, you know what, this guy might beat us, but he's not going to beat us with his legs. And sure enough, the guy was back there in the pocket, and he just couldn't get it done. And he started throwing interceptions, and Stoops looks like a genius now. And I'm absolutely confident that Tim Banks saw that, and he will almost certainly emulate it. All right, folks. Yep, the Stars showed up, that's for sure. And I look forward to watching them show up even more, especially, like I say, the Florida game. And I really feel good about starting out 4-0, which will be fantastic. I felt that way the entire time and been calling for it. And right now I feel as good as I have all year about it. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. I've only been doing this a couple of months. I could use some subscribers. And I hope you did like the content. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.